Welcome to the Project Endure podcast, the place where we talk about life, endurance, persistence, perspective, and so much more. I'm Joe Rinaldi, and I'll be your host. Let's jump in. Before we get started, let me just say that we get it. Personal development can be hard, but you don't have to do it alone. Project Endure has been on a mission to create a supportive and inspiring community of people, all striving to be better together. Head down to the link in the show notes and join the Hard Things Club so that we can do hard things together. And if you're already a member, invite a friend and spread the love. Now, let's get to the episode. Welcome back to the Project Endure podcast, episode 149. Today we have myself, Joe Rinaldi, and a very, very special guest down in Texas, Greg Scheinman. Greg, how are you, man?
I'm great, Joe. Thanks for having me. 149. Congratulations. I mean, that is serious.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And if you count all of the episodes that Sam, Tooley, and I recorded of the Pursuit podcast where we first met, it's probably closer to 200. And so I love every second of podcasting and having these meaningful conversations, and so looking forward to having you on. And so I figured we would jump right in, and I'd have you introduce yourself to our audience however you'd like.
Thank you again. And that was fun when you, me, and Sam did that too. So if you're listening to this one, go back and catch that one. I think it's a timeless conversation as well. Look, I'm 51 years old. I am a husband. I am a father. I am a lifelong entrepreneur with kind of a very peaks and valley-esque type career structure that we can get into. And I'm just inherently curious, about what this next phase of life, what midlife looks like, how we could maximize it, and stop seeing aging as something to fear, start seeing it as something aspirational. I've spent most of my life chasing salary and title and chasing things that I turned out didn't necessarily want. And here I am now raising two boys at 20 and 17. And what's happened, is really, really interesting. That just started writing about the experiences that I was having, writing about what I didn't know, trying to find answers to questions that I had and things that were confusing to me, or that were challenging to me. And that's what I've been fortunate to do for the last couple of years, is have some incredible people, 200 plus conversations with incredible men from across the world in all sorts of backgrounds out there. And those conversations led to the book and my spin on what I was taking away and learning from that. And the book led to speaking, and the speaking led to coaching. And now what we're seeing with Midlife Male, it's really becoming this omni-channel media platform to help men, much like myself. I am the avatar. I am the product there. What it looks like to kind of reframe and redefine what aging looks like, what this next phase of life looks like. And, that's really who I am and what I do at this point.
I have a lot of questions. A lot of them stem from me having lived my 29 years here on earth so far, always feeling much older than I physically was. So in my mind, if I had to associate with an age group, I think I would put myself in my 50s. And if anybody really knows me, that's not surprising. And so I'm so curious to hear more about your mindset, how you redefine yourself, how you look at aging and your perspective in general on life. Let me start with this question. If you could go back in time and tell your 29-year-old self one thing that you wish you knew at that time, what would it be?
Slow down. I spent the early portion of my life, and I would call that basically from the time I was born and raised. Uh, I think well into my 30s, just racing and chasing. For the first 17 years of my life, I experienced no hardship whatsoever. I grew up in an upscale community, nowhere else to go but down. At 17, my father passed away, and he was 47 at the time. We'll get to that part of the story later. And that that sent me on this next tailspin. I grew up quickly in New York. We were going into the city, we were growing up quickly. We did everything early, everything fast, fast, loose, out of control, nowhere to go but down, no ramifications, or anything from our actions at all. And then everything changed when my dad passed away. Then it became a different kind of racing and chasing. It was to outrun the grief, it was to outrun the trauma. It was to kind of live fast, die young, leave a good looking corpse. Like I didn't care that much about anything because I had lost what I thought was everything. And then it was, well, if I can get through this, then I can get through everything. So left a lot of collateral damage, in my wake, operating that way for a long period of time. And I was fortunate at the same time where I was able to start businesses and I was able to do things. And I produced some movies, and then I had a video company. Things got done in this kind of reckless, fearless, narcissistic kind of chip on my shoulder manner. Like, I can do it, I can show it. And I did it without wanting to ask for help. And I didn't have great mentors, and I didn't know how to ask for help. Like, I thought all that shit was gone. Like, it was gone. Um, and I was wrong. So if I had to tell my younger self one thing, it would be to slow down. Because I think ultimately I've come to the conclusion that I am a slow learner and a late bloomer. And now that I've actually slowed things down, things have gotten better, things have gotten faster, things have become more linear. You can see around the bend a little clearer. And that slow is smooth, smooth is fast kind of mantra. It's true. So, I mean, I tell even my boys now at 20 and 17, hey, like, slow it down. It's going to be fine. There's a college out there for my younger one. This issue or challenge that you have right now, it is not insurmountable. There'll be others. My other son is in college, and you want to take a year off, or you want to figure, like, whatever it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. You run your own race.
Was there a moment or a season in specific where you were able to recognize that you needed to live life at a slower pace, where maybe ego was put in check a bit?
Mm. Yeah, there's a whole chapter in my book actually called "Breaking Up with Your Ego," and it's all about this. There was one point in particular. I say two things. One, that there was never one singular thing that was the tipping point, or there was no one moment in particular that I could black and white say, this is where I was yesterday, this is where I'm going to be today. However, there were a series of impactful moments, a series of things that occurred throughout my life, and they culminated on my 47th birthday, on the 10-year anniversary with my firm. I was the same age as when my father passed away. I was a partner in a large insurance firm at the time. I was in the parking lot of my office building, beautiful building, office on the 24th floor, overlooking the entire city of Houston, multi-million-dollar book of business, all of this stuff. Wife, kids, everything from the outside looking in, looking great. And I couldn't go inside. Couldn't get myself out of the car, couldn't go inside. Couldn't believe that this was it. Like, this is what my life had become. And that was really the moment when I decided that things needed to change, that when I say chasing authenticity where authenticity does not exist is exhausting. And I was fucking exhausted. Sorry, can you curse on this?
Oh yeah, you're good.
Okay.
You're good.
Okay. I was exhausted. And that's where I really spent the next 3 years trying to figure out the answers to the questions that I had. That's when all this really got started. Taking 47 years of trial and error, successes and failures, trauma, unpacked baggage, all of that was okay. I'm going to do things differently now. I don't know the answers to the test. I'm going to have to start finding some people that I can ask the right questions to and hopefully get the right answers and start to apply that. And that really became the impetus for my personal transformation. You know, a lot of people say it's reinvention. Oh, you reinvented yourself. I'm like, nah, that's not the case. I didn't reinvent myself. I released myself. This is always who I've been. I just didn't allow it and wasn't able to get it out there in the manner that was right for me. So that's where this map came from, this midlife action plan. That's where the 5 rules that I developed for how I was going to change my life came from. They came from these 200 plus conversations. They came from testing and retesting. It came from this shift in mindset of chasing salary and title to a more holistic metric of success, which became my 6 F's: family and fitness and finance and food and fashion and fun, the shit that was important to me when I really stepped back and took a look at it. And, you know, it doesn't happen overnight. And I tell the guys all the time, it doesn't happen overnight. I didn't just quit my job and follow my passion. You know, that day was couldn't afford to do any of those things. Like you've got to really think about how you are going to do this responsibly, not impulsively, but respectfully, responsibly. Honor your obligations to yourself, to your family, to the community, and also navigate around and through the obstacles that are in your way. Sounds like a 3-year process. Shorter, still a long answer, but a 3-year, basically a 3-year process from 47 to 50. And who knows how many thousands of little instances along the way led to that moment.
Mm. So there's this quote from Alexis Carrel who said, logic never attracts men to the point of carrying them away, right? Everything that you just said, I'm nodding my head in agreement. And yet there's part of me, and maybe it's just the 29-year-old in me, um, that feels like, well, maybe, but I think I would need to get to that point, standing outside of the business with the money, the family, the things, to feel what Greg felt, to learn what Greg learned. Is there anything that you could have told your younger self that would have convinced your younger self that this is the way you should be approaching life and that it's not about the money, it's not about the accolades, it's not about the achievements?
No, I've thought about this one. And you know, look, I do also believe that everything happens for a reason. And I think you get what you can handle. And I think you attract and repel exactly what you deserve. And over the course of my life, all of those things have proven to be true. And no matter who would have come to me, probably with the exception of my own father, and no, remember, and he wasn't there any longer, I wasn't open to listen to anybody anyway. And you can't change a system unless that system is open to change. I've seen it in life, I've seen it in business, and I was closed for business and closed for change. So until I got comfortable opening up, until I got comfortable with the notion of asking for help, until I got comfortable listening and not thinking I had to be the only one pushing the boulder uphill all by myself all the time, there was no chance anything or anybody was going to break through or get in there. And I think that's where a lot of men in middle age sit, is we're scared. I was scared, like beyond scared. What's beyond scared? Like deathly afraid of appearing weak, or that I don't have it covered, or to even go into my own trauma or into my own insecurities or vulnerabilities and imperfections and all of that stuff. And there's so much risk, I think, associated with that. And that's where these guys, I think, and myself good, that's where we retract, we retreat into conformity, complacency, redundancy, this belief that midlife is a crisis and that our best days are behind us. And I think, Joe, that's also why you see all these men's groups popping up right now to foster men's vulnerability and almost feminize men. And I think it's the last thing we need. And I don't think it's about not being able to cry or again, not be vulnerable. We should be able to do that. Like, I'm better at it now. I'm not great at it still. It's a total work in progress. But I think the real midlife crisis, if we want to get to it, for men, is that men have become more accepting about being less than we want to be. We're just holding back, the natural instincts, the strengths, and so much of what has made great men great. It's almost now being seen as shortcomings.
Can you give an example of one of those for people listening?
I think it's the same reason, again, why even I was in my last position for 14 years. Time moves, and we get on these paths of marriage and children and career trajectories. Or maybe we've tried entrepreneurship and we failed, or we didn't like what we were doing before and this is better, but it's still not great, but it's good enough. And you look around and everybody kind of looks the same. Misery loves company in a way. In all of those things, you go, oh, you know what? I'm doing better than most. I've got the house. I've got the car. This is what I've got the cars. I've got the private school tuitions to pay for right now. The wife is healthy. The kids are healthy. Like, here we go. Like, we're taking our requisite 2 vacations and all of these things. Like, but something is missing. Something doesn't feel right. And you do this over and over and over again because you're on the wheel. The monthly expenses go up. You get the promotion. Like, you're playing the game. You're in the right order. You're buying into this notion of corporate culture, all of these other things. The waistband's getting a little bit larger. You're drinking a little bit more. You're going out on the weekends, and you're at the big table, and the wives are on one side and the husbands are on the other side. Like, it all just, you're inheriting friendships that where your kids go to school and the teams that they play on, all this shit is just happening to you. And it's like it's by default. It's not by your design, it's by default. And I say this, like, mediocrity happens by default, maximization happens by design.
Mm.
And you spend, you wake up and you go, holy shit, I spent 14 or so years being mediocre. I just defaulted into this. And for all intents and purposes, it's working. But in your heart of hearts, when you look in the mirror, it ain't working.
Mm.
And it has not been by your design. It's because you are back there in these societal metrics of success, doing what you're supposed to do, checking the boxes, doing quote unquote better than most. And you're the only one who knows that it's not enough for you.
Mm. There's a lot to unpack there, and it's all great stuff. And even though your target audience, if you will, is men in midlife, I think a lot of what you're saying can resonate with anyone, anywhere, at any age. Right?
I hope so. And listen, and I think you're right. First of all, 40% of the people that listen to my podcast, get my newsletter, and reach out to me are female.
Mm,
So that was one. They want their husbands to be better. They want their ex-husbands who they have to co-parent with for the rest of their lives to be better. They want their brothers. They want their fathers. They want their cousins. There are men in their lives that they know are not operating in the manner that they could be, and they want more for them.
mm.
And women historically, I think, are better at asking for help or doing all, raising their hand, all of those things. So I get a lot. And as far as the age situation, as I said, I'm a slow learner and a late bloomer. I wish I got this earlier. And I think what's really, really cool is one of the demographics that really has been paying attention to what's happening even at midlife male. These amazing young men like yourself who want that insight. They want insight. They want access. They want networking. They want accountability. They want to avoid the midlife crisis altogether. They want to see around the bend. Hey, that guy can save me 5 years and $500,000. That guy can save me all these potential missteps. Oh, and like I said, if a system is not open to change, it will not change. There is an open-mindedness to younger men today that I believe is highly beneficial that I didn't have. And when I hear from younger men and when I get to do things like this with you, like it's deeply empowering.
Mm.
And it's like, wow, I wish I was asking for this. Like when we finish this and I tell my son, guess what? Joe's a guy you need to follow. Joe's a guy you need. I did this. He's 29, you're 20 right now. Like who are my boys looking to?
Mm.
It's a huge leap from 20 to 51 where I am. But can we steer them to other young men and positive role models like yourself who are doing great things? Because look, if you could get there more efficiently and more effectively and avoid so much of the pain
Mm.
that I went through, and honest, do it. I'm not one of those guys that's like, hey, get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Mm.
No, like comfort's great. Like if you can make it comfortable and have a happy, wonderful, healthy, comfortable life, more power to you.
Mm.
More often than not, you got to go through a shit ton of discomfort to get there. But I don't wish anybody having to go through all of it. Like, that's for sure. Like we can avoid, let's try to help and serve and get you where you want to go faster and better and happier and healthier and stronger and well, and take back some of these things that maybe you've lost in midlife. Or again, don't lose them to begin with.
I think there's a lot of truth to what you just said, all of it. And you touched on the idea of comfort. And a lot of times, in order to get to comfort, we need to go through discomfort. Not always, but oftentimes. And I believe that life has two kinds of hard: the hard that we choose and the hard that chooses us. And so I'm wondering, when you look back on your 51 years so far, what's the hardest thing that you've ever had to handle that you didn't choose? And then on the flip side, what's the hardest thing you've ever chosen for yourself? And how have both of those things transformed you?
Mm. Okay, we got to pick this one apart. And,
Sure.
and I'm going to fumble the second part just because I have a short memory also. So you'll ask that part again. But I think if I got the first part, the hardest thing that I did not get to choose.
Correct.
I mean, that's unequivocally, my father passing away. I did not choose that. Would not wish that again on anyone. Um, it was very hard for me when my brother went to prison. Didn't choose that. That's a tough one. The sharing of the same last name, the legacy, what we want to stand for, all of that was really hard also. It's one of the reasons I moved even. I didn't want to stick around from where I grew up. Didn't have the same feeling anymore. Didn't have the same confidence. I just did, you go from having nowhere to go but down to feeling like, oh shit, now I can't even fall off the floor anymore. So those were two that I did not choose that
Mhm.
were rough. Um, the hardest thing that I've done that I've chosen, I think I'm doing it now because it's so different from anything that I've ever done before. Like the hardest thing that I do and I get to do, and I've chosen it. I actually said it earlier this morning. I got to keep reminding myself that I chose this, is to put myself out there, to get raw, to get real, to get naked, to get vulnerable with all of these things, especially as somebody who really, really cares what other people think, no matter how much I try not to. Um, this is the hardest thing. And I'm being challenged like I've never been challenged before to continue to go deeper, to continue to peel back layers of the onion, to continue to not pull punches, to live unguarded out there. And that's really, really hard, man. And the guys that are challenging me, I'm so fortunate to have them in my life right now. The guys that are challenging me are really smart and they're really successful and they're doing it for all the right reasons. And I don't like it because it's hard. Because it's easier just to sit in your backyard like I've done for years and write some stuff, hit send, and never read it. To take your chips off the table and say, I've accomplished enough. I don't really need to necessarily do, you know, I don't need to hustle and grind anymore. I don't need to go 24/7. I don't need, now I'm not flying private, and doing everything. But like, hey, like we've done all right. What's really important to me? What I really want to do, man, is work out a little bit, be with my wife, be with my kids, play with my dogs, and hang out. Like I don't like, so to be pushed, be like that thing you put out there, that story, like you held back. Or no, I'm going to send it back to you. You're going to read it. You're going to go deeper. You're going to explore this. You're going to ask better questions. You're going to act, and we're going to build a real, real community here. Like we're going to make a real deep impact in the lives of millions of middle-aged men now, and anyone, quite frankly. But in order to do that, like you got to go like hard in the paint. You got to go from the backyard back to the boardroom. And I didn't think I wanted to do that. And I was at that intersection, last year. And I made the decision like, okay, let's go. Let's go. At 51 now, I'm getting up again and we're gonna fucking go. And it's the hardest thing I've ever done, but it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done. It doesn't feel like the work that I've done for the first 50, year of my life. It has a completely different feel and energy to it. And because of this, I'm getting better. I talked about being okay with being comfortable. I'm being pushed and challenged into the discomfort again. Get back in the game, take what you've learned and continue to learn. And actually, now we're going to win the game, but we're going to win a completely different game, a completely different way. And we're seeing it now. It's slowed down. I can see the play developing as it's happening. That receiver's open. That guy, you can see it now differently. So when we're putting out newsletters, as we're building an editorial team, as I'm getting opportunities to talk to people like you and get out on stages, and I'm working with different kinds of men. You're at 149 episodes, over 200 with the stuff you probably did with Sam. I'm over 200 episodes, now. Thousands of no's to get to 250, thousands of no's. What's starting to happen now? People are coming saying, I want to be on. Like, let's chop this up, or that's landed with me. It's the level of everything is rising. So I feel like I'm just getting started right now. Longest answer to your question you could possibly have, but I feel like, again, we're just getting started. And if we tap into this, like, whatever age you're at, like, we do have this opportunity to live longer and healthier and happier and better. So, like, the middle is, it's messy.
Mm,
It's really messy, but it is the sweet spot. Like, I really think this part of life is so interestingly and uniquely positive. I think it just gets such a bad rap,
mm,
but I am so much smarter now than I was before. I'm so much more open to learn. I'm so much more open to accept other people around. There's so, and I also now, I've got a little more time. My kids are a little bit older. You know, my wife is amazing and she's completely independent. Like, all of these things, got a little bit more money, in saved up, a little bit more for all of these things, a little bit more disciplined, which equals a little bit more freedom. So, like, and I think 50 to 70 are going to be like unbelievable years. So, that's, the hardest thing that I'm doing is right now, but it absolutely is the thing that fills my tank the most. And work used to always drain me. And I do think it's true when you finally find, that combination of personal passion and professional expertise, like, that's when it really, really clicks overall.
yeah. You can, or and I would imagine the listeners can feel the energy. There's a shift in energy when you started talking about this hard yet rewarding season that you're in right now. It just elevated a few notches, and that's contagious. One, and two, you talked about digging and going deeper, and looking for those things that maybe in the past you've avoided. Is there anything that you're afraid of? Or if you had to say you're afraid of this thing, maybe you dig too deep and you actually find it. Is there anything there that you're afraid of?
I'm afraid of everything. like, like, I am. Okay. All of this stuff, like, that's even like really me. Like, I'm afraid of everything.
Mm,
Mm. Um, I exercise, probably an over-index in exercising because, I'm afraid of being overweight and out of shape. I don't mind being bald, ironically enough, but I do mind really being bald and fat. Okay. I'm afraid to check my bank statements in the morning, even though I know exactly what's in there. I'm afraid to have conversations with my wife. We've been married for 23 years. We've been together for 25. I'm afraid of everything. We got a basketball game tonight for my son. He's 17, his high school team. As soon as I get off of you, I'm afraid of what I might say. or my body language in the stands. Like, I am in perpetual fear of things going wrong or doing wrong or somebody not liking me or that, imposter syndrome is on level 10, wherever it is. I'm afraid of everything. And, like, I also think that, the part that sometimes people miss, like, there's always something you're not seeing. It's like, if you think that that particular person, or even just using myself, has it together, has it covered because of the way they either put themselves together, they dress, their body looks, their anything else looks, no, we are covering. Okay. We are. This isn't a sign. I don't do all these things because I'm a super confident person and because, I am all this bravado and I'm not. I do it all because I'm deathly afraid of everything.
mm,
So I just think you own it. The part where the fearlessness comes in, where the fearlessness kind of trumps over the fear, is when you just own it and you can say it. It's like, well, listen, you can't make fun of me for taking pictures with my shirt off because I'm already making fun of me for taking pictures with my shirt off. Why do I do it? Because it holds me accountable to making sure I get up and go to the gym the next day because I don't want to take the photo 6 months later and you guys go, what happened to him over there? Like, whatever it might be. When I'll put out pieces of content, and sometimes you think you wrote the hit song for the song, and it lands like a thud. and there's nobody emailing you back and nobody interacting. And other times you put something out there, you think nothing of it, and all of a sudden, you get a completely different response. And I'm afraid of both. The thing that lands like a thud that didn't connect and what's wrong with me. And oh my God, all of these people seem to like what I'm doing. And now you either got, how do I handle that? Both are scary. But back to what you said, choose your hard. We get to choose our hard. It's hard to be out of shape. I mean, it's hard to be in shape. Which one's harder? It's hard, look, it's hard to be financially successful. I would offer it's a lot harder to be broke. All of these things, like we do get to choose our hard. And I think that's what ultimately gets us up in the morning. And that's what also gets us to think about, again, back to that, what is that map? What are those 5 rules? Knowing what's important is what's most important. If you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there. Aggregate, curate, and eliminate. There's so much noise out there. You've got to take it all in, curate it down to what works for you, eliminate what doesn't. Show me your calendar. I'll show you your priorities. Grace, gratitude, and latitude. We are so hard on ourselves. So much of what we've been talking about so far is like how hard it is, just how hard in general life and midlife is. We're really hard on ourselves. If you can take those 5 rules and live by them, I think you're going to be okay. I think you're going to be better than most. I think you are going to find what your middle is. I read something today. It was like master the middle. I was like, wow, that's so good. It's better than what I wrote. What in there, that the middle is the sweet spot. It's like, can we become masters in the middle? Not the over-indexing, so much white space between being out of shape and being some, jacked Iron Man. So much white space between, again, being broke and being super, super wealthy, but somewhere in like, what's your middle? And can you master that?
Mm.
Like, that's a really, really cool place to be. And that's just what I love doing with guys right now too, is like exploring like what your metric of success looks like. My F's don't have to be your F's. My middle does not have to be the same as yours. Be a little sloped in this direction or that direction. How do we make choices and decisions? The actions we take, the choices we make, those are the things that stack up to determine how successful or if we're going to be successful. Like that stuff's really, really fun and energizing to go deep in and keep it simple. I mean, it's like simple is hard enough. We just overcomplicate everything.
So I, like a lot of the listeners, live on the extreme side of things. When I go all in on something, I'm all in. When I don't like something, I'm all out. The middle is hard. The middle is uncomfortable. The middle is relatively unexplored in my life. Moderation isn't something I'm good at. I like to know where I'm headed, and if I want to go there, I go there, and if I don't, I don't. Balance is a word that's always baffled me, because balance is often talked about like this thing you find, right? Find balance, right? Almost as if it's this thing you plant your flag in the ground and you found balance. But it's so fluid, it's so dynamic. It means so many different things to so many different people. What is balance and what does the middle look like for you at this point in your life?
Yeah, I'm going to hit you here on this one. Balance is bullshit. Okay.
Love it.
About balance is bullshit. I don't like the term. I've written about it. It's out there. You can find, I much prefer harmony. And I think at various stages of your life and continuing on, your life will never be in balance. It's like we overestimate what we can do in a day. We underestimate what we can do in a year. This striving for balance and to get everything done. No, play the long game. At certain times of your life, certain things are going to take precedence. Certain things are going to be out of balance. You're going to have a time where you're going to be invested heavily, whether it's in your marriage, whether it's in your kids, whether it's in your education, whether it's in your career, and something's got to give. You are not going to wake up before the sun, sauna, cold plunge, meditate, journal, okay? Have sex with your wife, take your kids to school, walk your dogs, put in a 12-hour day, make $1 million, come home. It's just not going to work. It doesn't work like that. And you're going to break if that's the case. So this notion of like balance, I think, is complete bullshit. And I would prefer if we started to look at things again, even in the long game or in terms of, you know, total life wellness or harmony, or quite frankly, knowing what's important is what's most important. And at various times of your life, there are other things that are going to rise to the level of most important. And yes, we can also always say, like, oh, my family is always the most important. And it's your number one. Yes, it is, Greg. But guess what? Taking care of my family is a huge responsibility, which also requires me not to be at certain things at certain times so that they could do the things at certain days and certain times that I fucking want to provide for them to do. So there's sacrifice involved in this. There's give and take in this, which means you're out of balance at some point. And I think we accept that. Now, when looking back on our entire scope of life, could it be more balanced? But yeah, but if you're only looking at it if you're looking at a 1 day window, or you're looking at a week window, or you're looking at a month window versus a 5 year window or a 10 year, like it's going to look very different. Like any investment portfolio, I talk about run your life like you run your business. Are we playing the long game here? What are we investing in? Where are we allocating our time, our resources, our energy, so that ultimately, if we look back on our life's work, weeks, months, quarters, years, various stages, 10-year anniversary, 20-year anniversary, whatever it might be, sending your kid off to college. Hey, did I pretty much run a balanced portfolio of life? Could argue, yeah. Did it feel like it at the time? Did I make a conscious decision to prioritize different things at different times? Absolutely. So I think the other thing you said about going all in, you could go all in on the middle. It's just changing your mindset.
Mm.
You don't have to see it as mediocrity in the middle, or you don't have to see it as not going all in. You can say, listen, I'm going all in on maximizing in the middle. Like that's how I'm choosing to look at it right now. It may not be enough for you, but your metric of success might be different. Your level might be somewhere else. Your priorities might be different. But maximizing my middle looks like this, and I'm all in on that. And let me tell you something, it is a lot harder to do less than it is to do more. So think about the strength that it takes and the discipline that it takes sometimes to stay in the middle. And to not see that as missing or squandering your potential or opportunities, but rather see it as this is low friction living. This is the place I want to be. This is what success looks like for me. You do that. That's cool if you want to. I could do that. This is where the fearlessness or the confidence and all that, I could do it. Just because I could do something doesn't mean I should do it. Just because I could work longer or harder or make more doesn't necessarily make that the right answer.
Mm.
Just because you are capable, or just because somebody else challenges you or tells you you could. You got to decide which challenges you want to accept and which ones maybe you want to defer.
Mm. Man, this is so good, Greg. And I wish this conversation could go on for hours because, I would enjoy that. But for the sake of time, and so we can get you off to your son's basketball game, I've got two more questions. We can keep the first one brief, and then the last one is all you, whatever you want to share. But the first one, what does the word endurance mean to you?
Long. Endurance is scary. Endurance is power.
Mm.
I marvel again at those guys who can play the long game. Endurance is like you get up and you get dressed and you get after it and you keep doing it every day. And I think, endurance marathons, ultras, Ironmans. I mean, now I've climbed the equivalent of Everest a few times. I've done a couple of those 29, 029 events. And like endurance is not something, again, I was a sprinter earlier on, not like an actual like runner, but again, everything had to be done fast. Like even in my early CrossFit background, when I took everything was like, okay, what do you do to get strong? You lift weights. What do you do for cardio? I lift weights faster. Like everything could be faster, like endurance. Like, why would I do endurance? Like, why would people run that far when they could just cut across the parking lot over here and shorten the distance? Endurance is scary to people who like shortcuts, to people who like quick fixes, to people who don't like to commit, that want the quicker dollar. That's me to a T. So endurance is a scary word. I'm embracing endurance much more now. The notion of slow, steady, rhythm, cadence, playing the long game. And maybe these things happen when you cross the threshold of 50 or so on and so on. And you start to realize that this is a marathon. It isn't a sprint. These cliches are actually true. These stereotypes didn't come from nowhere. And what does it look like to live a long, productive life? Not necessarily even win. And again, not being obsessed with winning. So much of even where I'm shifting to now is I don't really compete anymore. I take part in a lot of challenges. And it's not about winning them. It's about what does winning look like to me or feel like. We all get the same thing for finishing, like in there. It's like, okay, can you complete the challenge? Can you also enjoy it? I learned that on the mountain 2 years ago. The first year I did the Everest climb, I only knew one way to do it, which was you go fast. Okay, like go fast. Something could go wrong. Finish it, like do it. So we didn't sleep. We went through the night. We did the whole thing. And I didn't enjoy this. I didn't enjoy this at all. Here we are in this beautiful place, beautiful mountain in Utah, amazing people that were out there, incredible community. They had great food. They had a recovery thing. I didn't see any of it. I only cared about finishing and as fast as possible, not failing. And there was so much in the middle again that I missed. So year two, when I went back, completely different strategy. I'm going to enjoy every minute of this. I believe I've got plenty of time and I'm in a physical condition to finish this in plenty of time. And by the way, you get nothing different for finishing in 23 hours than if you finish in 35 hours and 59 minutes. The cap is 36 hours. And I gotta tell you, man, I had a great time, a much better experience. I met amazing people, had incredible conversations, took a few hours of downtime, got work done, ate the food, did everything so much better. Both endurance, very different ways of approaching them. So, to that, it's like live and learn. And now we'll go back for round three. And that's the whole point of this. Keep going. All these experiences that are new and that you learn from, keep applying them. And then the message really is keep paying it forward. Share what you're learning for the long game. We'll keep putting that out there. We'll keep growing. One episode, one newsletter, one podcast, one book, one speech at a time. And you keep changing, hopefully one life at a time for the better. And it keeps that, that's endurance. Stay in the game.
Mm. I know this conversation will change lives, no doubt about it, if not just mine. But with that being said, Greg, I think this whole conversation has been the answer to this final question. And I just want you to sum things up, add anything that we left out, or just share whatever's on your mind. There are people listening to this who are all over the world in all different seasons of life, going through all different kinds of things. And if you could speak to the people who are really struggling, they feel lost, they feel stuck, they feel down, and they just don't know where to go or what to do, what would you say to them?
Today is the day you start. That's it. Today is the day you give your wife that kiss good morning instead of rolling out of bed and just ignoring her, taking her for granted. Today is the day you can just simply swap one soda for some water. Today is the day you can go for a walk or take the stairs instead of the elevator. Today is the day you can put $1 into savings instead of spending it. There's always a reason not to. There's always a reason to not start the business or to not do something or not take that chance or anything else. There's never the perfect time or the right time. We're all struggling with something. There's always something that you are not seeing out there. The hardest thing to do is to take that first step and to just start. I promise you, if you can do that and start stringing together one better day at a time, one better choice at a time, ask yourself this simple question: better one or better two? All day long, you can use this. Do I go through the drive-through and shove a bunch of fattening bad food down on her, or do I opt for a healthier meal today? Better one or better two? Do I leave the office a little bit earlier and make sure that I go to my kid's game, or do I stay later? Better one or better two? Or you can keep doing this. It's one of the things that I use. I know we're getting to it at the end, but it's literally the simplest way to make the better decision the majority of the time. And when you make the better decision the majority of the time, the majority of your life gets better. It is just that simple. And if you start today, and this is not about being perfect. Perfect is the enemy of good. Remember, the majority of the time, you start stringing together one better decision at a time. You make the better choice. Your entire life will get better. And this is at any age or any stage. Do I stay at the bar for one last drink, or do I go home from there? Do I get up early to work out in the morning, or do I sleep in? I mean, you can do this. It's endless for anything. Trust me on this one. You start doing it, you start stacking up better choices. Remember, you bat 300, you're going to the Hall of Fame. You're doing 0. You start adding 1, 2, 3 better decisions a day, you get back to endurance, and you stack that. You break the chain. All you do is start over the next day. So wherever you are, whatever you are struggling with, to answer your question, whatever position you are in life, whatever hand you are dealt, you can start right now. Today is the day you start to make one better choice at a time.
Life is, in a way, a choose your own adventure book, right? And each choice takes you down a different path. And the cumulative view of those choices takes you to wherever you're going to end up, whoever you're going to become. And like you said, no matter where anybody is right now in this moment, they can make the better next choice, and that will make their life better. And I love that. Yeah.
You're young for the choose your own adventure books, but by the way, I love those too. Those were amazing. And I think you're spot on with that. All of hey, you are faced with a couple of decisions. Which way do we want to go? Do we want to go left, or do we want to go right? We want to go left, or do we want to go right? Better one or better two? And here's the thing: as we weave through all of this in life, we get to course correct too. As you continue to go, you can always course correct.
Well, Greg, I appreciate this conversation so much. I'm thankful for you, the way you lead by example. And if anything that we spoke about resonated with somebody, where can they find you, connect with you, or learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, thank you so much, man. I love you. This is great to be here with you, and I'm so glad you're still doing it and doing what you do, and it's continuing to grow. And yeah, we'll come back for what's double 149. We'll say 300. I'll come back
Sounds good.
in there. They can go to midlifemail.com. Very simple. Midlifemail.com. They can subscribe to the newsletter, subscribe to the podcast, keep up on everything as well. There's a free downloadable PDF that's there. You can get a copy of my book. Everything's under the Midlife Mail umbrella.
Well, Greg, thank you so much. I would encourage anybody who enjoyed this conversation to go follow Greg, check out what he's up to, and just thank you again for this conversation, all that you do, and I'll see you at episode 300.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Joe.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Project Indoor podcast, go ahead and subscribe, leave a review on your platform of choice, and share this episode with a friend. It helps us get more conversations like this out to more people like you. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time. And one more thing. If you're looking for a community of people all striving to be better together, check out the Project Indoor Hard Things Club. The link is in the description below. We'd love to have you.